It's finally happened. It's a Christmas miracle. I have no better way of explaining what the heck we're doing here, sitting at this weird table in a different part of my house, than to tell you the Christmas miracle has happened. Was there ever a toy when you were a kid, or maybe not a toy, maybe a bike, maybe a video game system, something that you wanted for Christmas and just never got? You know, like in the movie The Santa Claus, the guy, my weenie whistle, the guy just wanted the Oscar Mayer weenie whistle, something like that that haunted you throughout the years. Well, there was something like that for me. And this isn't just any old Christmas miracle. This is a miracle 34 years in the making. I watched as 3 decades of Christmases rolled by, and each Christmas I would go, you know, it's another Christmas since I didn't get that thing. Well, that thing has arrived now, finally, 34 years later, and it wasn't Santa Claus who brought it. This time it came from a lady named Georgia over across the Atlantic Ocean in the UK. Was like, hey, would you be interested in having would I be interested? And I'm not gonna bury the lead on you. This is an amazing moment, and I just want to explain that I figured I should invite all of you guys to be a part of this thing. After all, it's Christmas 2023 as I'm filming this, and I hope you're having a very happy holiday. We're just here doing something a little unique, a little different for the holidays. I think call it a holiday special, call it what you want. It's a Randomland Show and Tell from me to you. I just wanted you to all be here as we unveil the ultimate Christmas present from 34 to 36, but we'll get into that. Years ago, here it comes, right here. Allie rewrapped this for me to make it a little more festive. It is none other than this. The Holy Grail, the biggest playset, certainly the tallest playset of the 1980s. It's the Ghostbusters Firehouse, or I should say, the real Ghostbusters Firehouse. Really quick, I just want to say I'm using cameras I'm not used to using. We're in a place I'm not used to sitting with microphones I've never used before, and we want to keep this as, as unedited and off the cuff as possible. It's a little different than our normal adventures. Yeah, it's just me and you connecting over the holidays, telling some stories, spinning some yards, and looking at the size of this gargantuan playset. Okay, so this was the playset, the home of the Ghostbusters. You guys have all seen the Ghostbusters film, and you remember they buy the beat-up old firehouse. Well, for me, when I was a kid, I desperately wanted this toy. I desperately wanted this thing. I thought it was just the coolest bee's knees, like rich kid toy, a toy that nobody in our family's income bracket had their hands on. So it was like even more mystical, more mythical. And in fact, I never knew anyone who got this when it first came out. Never met any kids that had it. I only ever saw one in the flesh in another kid's house and ever got to play with it once as a child. And I'll tell you that story in a second. But I should say, everybody remembers Ghostbusters, the movie. What fewer people remember who are older than me, but certainly everybody my age remembers, is the cartoon. Because I was a really, really small kid when that cartoon came out in 1986, I think, was the animated show, The Real Ghostbusters. So apparently, when they were making the movie Ghostbusters, they didn't have the rights to that name. There was already a TV show from the 60s or 70s called Ghostbusters, and there was a cartoon version of that. And so they had to call the cartoon The Real Ghostbusters, because the original Ghostbusters, there was a monkey or an ape. It was a whole other thing, a gorilla. You don't want to know about the other Ghostbusters, but these are the real Ghostbusters right here. And I've got Egon, and we've got, what's his name, Peter Venkman over here. And you'll notice Peter Venkman looks a little bit, you should squint and you blur your eyes a little, and he could be Bill Murray-ish. But you'll notice Egon's completely different. Look at Spangler there. He looks completely different than in the movie. And for me, this was my Ghostbusters. 1986, I was only 3 years old when the show came on the air. But 1987 is when the toys started to actually hit the store shelves. And so by 1987, I'm 4 years old. I'm right at that age where I'm getting interested in what are the bigger kids around me playing with? What are the bigger kids talking about? We always lived in apartments my whole life. And so there was always somebody a little bit older who had different stuff. And you're like, what the heck? Or kids that, at your preschool or kids at your church or whatever that would have different toys. You'd go over to their house and be like, what the heck is that? So I was already becoming aware of the Ghostbusters cartoon, and I was allowed to watch the cartoon. It was probably not until Ghostbusters 2 came out, which was 1989, that I maybe saw the TV version of Ghostbusters or something. Whenever it would have shown on TV, that's when I finally saw the movie, and I was like, hey, how come Egon doesn't have blonde hair? Where's his pompadour? All that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit confused at first. The Real Ghostbusters was a big deal. It was a huge show. in the early 80s. And before we can really look at this, I just got to preface it by saying I didn't even have any of the action figures when I was a really little kid, and I do now, of course. In fact, let me just put this up on the table just for looks at first. Oh yeah, we're going to get into this in a second. I didn't even have any of the action figures because I was still too little. I was 3, 4, and I had a 2-year-old brother. He was younger than me. Choking hazard. You don't want to stick, Venkman in your mouth or whatever. So one thing we did have when I was around 5, so maybe Christmas 88, somewhere in there, or birthdays or something like that, around 1988 sometime, my parents, who did not have a lot of money, when we were kids, we lived right over behind the Disneyland Hotel. We lived in a very, kind of a rough neighborhood. It was a pretty poor, rough, very working class type of neighborhood. I don't think my mom hadn't really started any kind of career yet. My dad was just getting on his feet. They had me when they were really young, so we're just like sort of a young, very, low-income family. My parents sort of rose up over the years and lived out the American dream. I'm very proud of them and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, not a lot of money to go around. So our toys were sort of hand-me-downs, like little kid toys and stuff your grandma would give you. There were a lot of toys at my grandma's house, but no action figures really yet. Action figures weren't really. I think I had like a Superman action figure, maybe a little Batman action from Superpowers, from a really old, early 80s stuff. But for all intents and purposes, we weren't really getting that stuff. But by 1988, my mom did get us one of the coolest things any kid in our apartments had, any kid in our little area, which was we got the Proton Pack. So you could see in old catalog photos and stuff, there were these sick Proton Packs, like little plastic fake backpacks. There was a little plastic hose and a little thing that held like a foam noodle that would rotate, and you had your little Proton Pack. We never had the ghost traps or the PKE meter or whatever the little meter is called, but we did have those Proton Packs, and that was awesome. But one thing we didn't have at first were any of the action figures. Eventually, I think I got, the classic 4 Ghostbusters. I had Peter and Ray and Winston and Egon, and that was about it. You had the little plastic noodle there. In fact, actually, why not bring this out now? Check this out. Now, you may be tempted to think that's a minty Venkman, from the 80s, but it's not. They actually reissued these figures really recently. It might have started in 2019, but certainly during the COVID years, Walmart was getting these reissues of the original 80s Ghostbusters figures, and so here's one right there. So you can see the Proton Packs in there. It's really hard to get a close-up look at. You can see the wacky, crazy noodle that would rotate, so it's spinning around, looking like, don't cross the streams! And each one would come with a little rubber ghost. There's a little rubber ghost. Remember that for later. There will be a test, and this is just important information for later. And as you can see on the back, the first wave of figures from like 86 or the beginning of 87, you didn't have the Firehouse or any vehicles or anything like that yet. So that would come along later. But anyway, we did start to get these classic Ghostbusters, but that's all we really had as kids. And this first came out, this Firehouse, in 1987. I think at the end of 87, this was like the big ticket Christmas item. But back then, it was $40. $40, which was not like today. You can't get groceries for 2 or 3 people for $40. Impossible in 2023. Actually, probably in the future, people are going, $40, that's like what you give your child to buy a piece of bubble gum. But back in the 1980s, that was not a piece of bubble gum worth. This thing was $20, a vehicle, your Batmobile, your Ninja Turtle van, any of the big, e-ticket, A-grade vehicles were $20, right around $19-20 for the big vehicles that you could put a few figures in. The actual action figures, when it comes to these, I'm pretty sure, I can remember for sure Ninja Turtles, which came out a little bit later, being like $3.88 when they were on sale. So I'm sure these were around $5. So all my math still to this day, when I go look at prices, I'm always like, what in the world? Because, an action figure now is $20 or whatever. And I always think an action figure's $5, a vehicle's $20, and a play set, a whole giant play set, is between $40 and, $50 to $60. And this was a $40 one in the 80s, so this was a big ticket item. I wasn't aware of this, though. I really wasn't aware of this. It was sort of a dull, vague thing with the figures for a couple of years. But something happened. Because remember, 1987, when this was first released, that was 36 years ago. And I said this is a miracle 34 years in the making for a reason. In 1989, Ghostbusters 2 came out, and they re-released the Ecto-1. It was the Ecto-1A, so it was this exact same thing, this exact same guy right here, only he had, there were a bunch of crazy, wacky stickers to put on it and different decals that made it like the pink slime and all that kind of stuff. But the animated show had been going from 86, I think it went all the way up till 1991, so it had been going the entire time. But Ghostbusters 2, that was a big deal. So we were getting promotion through the cartoon, and now Ghostbusters 2, the big movie's coming out, and they had a whole line of figures and I think there were tie-in episodes and the whole thing. In fact, in Ghostbusters 2, you ever wonder why the slime is pink in Ghostbusters 2? Is it to be different than Ninja Turtles? No, it's because in the cartoon, when they were selling the action figures, they were selling little cans of ectoplasm, and it was pink slime. And so they actually, I'm pretty sure, I could be getting this wrong. There might be some angry Ghostbusters fans out there texting me or leaving comments right now. Oh no, but I'm pretty sure that the pink slime in the second movie, it really seemed like it came from the toys and not the other way around. Anyway, for that movie, they re-released this thing, or at least it was back on store shelves because they thought, Kenner probably thought correctly, like, oh, the kids are going to want that Ghostbusters Firehouse. And so I can remember this being on store shelves in 1989, and I remember thinking, oh, that is cool. $40, it was a fortune. I don't know what $40 is back then. I don't know what $40 is now. And I'm thinking, that's irrelevant. I want this Firehouse. It is the coolest, the biggest, the tallest, the most mighty. And yes, we're going to see inside of it. We're going to look at it. I'm getting there. Actually, I'll spin it while I'm talking. It's just the coolest, biggest playset ever. I mean, look at the size of this thing. You got the sign up here. The doors are intact. Those are always broken. So this is so cool. And look at that. It's 3 stories inside. You can see there's all this space and craziness. And in 1989, we were seeing a lot of toy commercials where the coolest thing ever would happen. Spoiler alert, if you want to stick this inside the Firehouse, you got to take the little gunner seat, see, off the top of that thing. It's not going to fit. But in 1989, the toy commercials were all had stuff like this, boom, there comes the Ecto-1 blasting out of the doors. Every kid had this. I felt like tons and tons of kids had the Ecto-1 around, and so you see this everywhere, and you just see that vehicle, just that money shot of it cruising out of the freaking Firehouse. And then over here, it's going to be difficult to see at the moment. We'll see it better in a little bit. There's a hole on the top of this thing, and so slime will actually come down the first story, and there's another hole here on slime, and ectoplasm actually, not slime, would be coming down, or ooze if it was turtles, would be coming down here, and you get slime features and all kinds of cool stuff, and then there's an elevator, there's all kinds of stuff on here. So you're seeing these toy commercials, oh my gosh, that's the coolest, the most ultimate thing. Now, like I said, not a lot of money to go around when we were kids, so I knew it was a long shot, the longest of all long shots, but that wasn't the issue. Well, my parents by then were doing a little bit better, there was a little bit more money for Christmas presents, the action figures, and I'd already started to get heavily into action figures before 1989. 1989 was like sort of the year of the action figure for me. It was a big explosion. Why? And why didn't the Firehouse come for me for Christmas? I'll tell you why. Because there was a lot of other stuff on the menu. First of all, first and foremost, definitely were these guys. You had the classic original, and these are originals. These are 1988 soft head Ninja Turtles coming out in 88 and 89, and that meant the turtle van, the turtle blimp. There was the sewer playset. I'm going to pull this out early. I was intending to keep this behind the scenes for a second. There was a sewer shredder. There was a sewer playset out there for kids for the Ninja Turtle. There was so much stuff. Turtle backpacks. There was a whole turtle craze, and supposedly in all the movie magazines, a movie on the horizon for Ninja Turtles. But you know what else? It wasn't just Ninja Turtles. So the figures of Ninja Turtles, that was competing for your Christmas dollars. But also, these two, well, this guy was coming to the silver screen, well, the big screen, I don't know, which one's the silver screen, the little screen or the big screen? The big screen, Batman, 1989, Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman was coming to theaters, which meant the Toy Biz action figures, which meant Robin was also there in action figure form. I don't know why he wasn't in the movie, but we got the action figure, and we had the Joker, and the Joker was around, so there were a lot of characters roaming around, the city, which is what I called, the area that my action figures inhabited in my room. They were in the city. There were a lot of characters vying for those Christmas dollars. So I cannot remember. I know Batman was Christmas '89, was like, I was so excited about Batman, but I think that year we were still getting Ninja Turtle stuff too, so there were multiple different things going on. And alas, we never got the Ghostbusters Firehouse in 1989. Too bad. But something crazy did happen the next year. The very next year, in 1990, so now the Ninja Turtle movie comes out, that's vying for my attention. The Dark Knight collection has come out, and, action figures were my only friends as a kid. I wasn't a sports kid. I wasn't even really a video game kid or anything. Although I liked, original NES and Super Nintendo and all that kind of stuff. My main thing was I liked action figures. I liked puppets. I liked creative stuff. I liked playing and, kind of choosing my own adventure. And I was never like I'm reenacting the movie or the show with the figures. I was always coming up with new stories and basically making my own movies in my head and doing camera angles with my eye on my vehicles and stuff. Like if I was driving the vehicle, I'd want to be like this, get the POV shot, and then I want to be like this and see that car coming at you shot, that kind of a thing. So I was really into toys. That's what I'm trying to get across to you, if you couldn't tell already by the Dark Knight collection video and stuff like that I did. So the Ghostbusters Firehouse just sort of slipped away other than in 1990. My mom had become an apartment manager, and I'm sure, she was just starting out, I don't even know if you got paid anything, but I know that like free rent was part of the deal. You were a full-time on-site property manager. It didn't pay a lot, and I know because I actually ended up working for the same company later when I was 17 or 18 or whatever. And it didn't pay a lot, but, you could get free rent. And so that was great. We had shelter for the family. And meanwhile, my dad was like, building up his career. He was trying to get to that next level and that next level. So we're in an apartment. My mom's managing it. And the lady who kind of mentored her or was like sort of, I don't know if she was over her, but this other lady was going to move off of her property. And my mom was going to get to level up just like 6 months after starting this job. And so it was interesting because it was kind of not her boss, but sort of her supervisor or something like that. But it was interesting because, well, we know her. So we got to go to that house when my mom was like, hey, we're going to move again. We had the weird thing of being able to go into the apartment you're going to move into while the people are still living there, which is like really weird. Normally you move into an apartment, you don't even see it with people living in there. It's not like buying a house or something, right? There's no people there when you go into an empty apartment. Vacant apartment. So not only did we get to go in that apartment, and so my mom's talking to the lady about, okay, here's how this property works and that property works, but my brother and I got to go back and see the room that we were going to live in where her two boys lived in that room, and they're talking to us and they're showing us their toys and stuff as all kids do. Check it out, I got Nintendo, what do you got? Oh, we don't have Nintendo yet, but and in the corner, off in the corner, I could still remember where it was because that became my room later, right by the sliding glass door to the little patio, was this. It was the freaking Ghostbusters Firehouse in their room. The kids had this toy, and we were like, oh my God. Seth and I, my brother, we were both like, are you kidding? Who's single, by the way, ladies? Give him a call. We were both like, are you kidding? Look at the size of that. That's the coolest thing ever. It's legendary. By this point, it's mythical. No one had this thing. So we're freaking out over it. We want to check it all out and whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of boring. And as we'll get to in some of the higher stories up here, they're like, yeah, it's, they're complaining about the features and whatever. Actually, sidebar for a moment. This is a common thing that you would expect to hear from like 40-year-old guys with YouTube channels or 35 to 50-year-old guys that are talking about toys or movies. And you'll hear guys talk about Ninja Turtles 2 is the perfect example of this. They'll be like, yeah, I remember seeing that and it sucked. They didn't even really use their weapons. It wasn't as dark and whatever. I'm telling you, no kid Ninja Turtle age going to see that movie. Maybe teenagers, but no kids were going to see that movie and noticing any of that. That's something you notice when you got older and you're like, hey, I never noticed they're not really using their weapons. Hey, what the heck? I never noticed the combat cold cuts. When you're a kid, you're like, ha ha, combat cold cuts, that's hilarious. Good one, Michelangelo. You know what I mean? So, but this, even at the time, those kids were saying like, yeah, it doesn't have like a lot of features or cool stuff or whatever. So I was like, all right, you don't even want this thing? This is the coolest thing ever. But I can remember them criticizing that, and several people criticized that. Man, I'm not getting that thing. I'm not wasting my birthday money on it. Da, 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 da. But I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I'll tell you exactly why I thought this was the coolest thing ever. I'm going to spin it around so you can just kind of see at least the lower floors of it while I'm doing this. Oh, look at that. You can see the garage down there. I thought this thing was the coolest thing ever. Not only because, look at this, you can freaking drive a vehicle right up in it, you guys, right up inside of it. And we'll contrast this with the Turtles one in a second because it's their total night and day different stuff. And we didn't have a lot of play sets, by the way, when I was a kid. We weren't like a play set family. My dad kind of figured, if we're talking 89, I know the way my dad's brain works. I know the way it works to this day. And I guarantee if him and my mom were going out to do the big Christmas shopping and bringing the checkbook to Target back then, the checkbook at the counter. Does anyone do that anymore? I'm sure he's thinking, $20 or $5 a piece, we can get them 4 Ninja Turtles instead of getting the vehicle. We'll get the Ninja Turtle vehicle, that's $20, but instead of $40 on this, we can get a bunch of the figures. And, you know, my dad knows how to make $1 go farther than almost anybody I know. And yeah, there was a logic to it. And so I'm guaranteed that if this ever even came up, that was part of the discussion. Like, it's just one toy. And he was right. You know, the more toys, the more storylines, the more characters, the more I'd be occupied and stay out of the way and stay out of trouble. So it was a good thing. But are you kidding? A freaking vehicle goes into this. And not only that, but every toy commercial, from the Ninja Turtles with their sort of cartoon New York thing going on. Uh-oh, something fell, sorry. To especially Batman. When in 1989, the Toy Biz Batman came out. You guys have seen him before. I did a whole episode on my Toy Biz Batman collection a few years ago, and then I did the Dark Knight collection, which came later, which was Kenner, like this. When the Batman figures came out, especially, you can see in those old Dark Knight collection commercials and stuff like that, just the way that there were like mock cities. There were these little miniature cities, and the kids would play in them. A lot of different toys. When the Marvel toys and the X-Men toys and all those things came, a lot of toy commercials had little cityscapes, and you'd see the cars like driving by buildings. You'd see little toy fire hydrants. You would see all kinds of that stuff. They never sold anything like that except for this. In 1987 especially, you had some big play sets. You had the bigger G.I. Joe play sets, I think, were around at that time. I know the USS flag, well, that's a whole other separate discussion, and that is definitely the biggest play set of all time. We're talking tallest, not biggest. You had Castle Grayskull. You had some chunky play, the Ewok Village for Star Wars. There were chunky play sets around floating in the ether in the 80s, but there was nothing like this that to me was just a straight up building. So it wasn't just about the Ghostbusters cartoon, which was old hat by then. I'd been watching that since I was 3 years old, half my life by then, you know what I mean? But or 4 years old, now I'm 8, so for half my life, it's all over. I was thinking, I gotta be honest with you, I'm sorry there are Ghostbusters fans. I enjoyed the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters are great. But by the time 89 came around, I was thinking about the Ninja Turtles in this thing, like something perfect for them to pop up from the sewer, get inside of this thing. Look at there's 3 stories. They can cruise up here and have a battle with Shredder or Bebop or Rocksteady. And I was also thinking about Batman. Mostly about Batman. Because look, it's the perfect scale. Compare Batman and Venkman right there. And look, they're the same size as each other. They're in the same scale, which means this is the perfect size place for Batman to be up on the roof surveying Gotham City, to dive down with his little rope, to go and check out this stuff. The Batmobile could drive into this thing. And so I'm thinking this is perfect for all around playing with all kinds of toys. Anyways, the point of the story is we finally did move in there, and I can remember getting back to that room and opening the doors. Like, oh, no Ghostbusters Firehouse. And the strange thing is that another playset that I never had as a kid, we were never given, we were never gifted, was the Castle Grayskull. But I had a strange way of, well, my friend Andy would say, manifesting these things when I was younger, and a strange way of coming across certain toys. So I always wanted a Castle Grayskull. You know, all those older kids had it, and I never had one. And one day I went out next to the dumpster on the ground, so someone didn't have the heart to throw it in. Somebody left it out, and I was like, whoa. Castle Grayskull. It didn't have any of the pieces and all that kind of stuff. It was old and junky and broken. And yes, we're going to get to the upstairs here just in 1 second. But I still play with it a little bit. And then my mom's like, where the heck did you get that? Throw that thing out. Another time, there was a Batmobile that I had. The original Toy Biz Batmobile disappeared. And years later, sitting on top, again, of the thing next to the dumpster, that's the Batmobile. I got another one of those Batmobiles. So it was a very strange, weird thing where I would or someone would say, hey, yeah, I'm done playing with that. Do you want this thing? I got some other rad old 90s playsets that came after this to show you guys, maybe the future show and tell or something like that. Anyway, let's take a look upstairs. As you can see on this top floor here, there's really not a lot going on. The kids were right when they said it didn't have a lot of play features. I mean, you do have this. Wow, Batman! Well, he took a dive there. Okay, let's not do that, Batman. Don't worry, he's good at landing. Not a lot going on up here. You can see the inside of the windows. There's like a Granny Ghost looking sticker over here. So there's a sticker of a painting. Other than a few peg holes here under this great system, which we'll take a closer look at in a second. There's really not a lot going on. Just a couple of snap-in railings. You can see Venkman's up there hanging out, wisecracking, using his weird Garfield voice. Same voice as Garfield in the 80s, no? No Garfield fans around here? What's wrong with you guys? Anyway, then downstairs here, there's a couple more stickers. So behind Egon here, there's a whole library. There's sort of a little shelf, an accidental shelf here made by the plastic. And I personally think it's genius that there are only actually 2 walls to this playset. There's one here, and that the rest is open. It's perfect because it actually looks like a building from the one angle on the outside. Like, sorry dudes, let's flip this thing around here. You have on this side, like, it's perfect for what I was saying, where those toy commercials would always have cityscapes and buildings. That's what I always wanted. I always wanted somewhere to play with my Batman. You know, he's in the dark alley, because I was reading the comics at that time, or the Ninja Turtles sneaking through the alley. And so this would have been so perfect. Like, here's the street, and there's the curb, and there's the driveway. You could put a vehicle inside, have adventures like I was talking about. And I love that the outside just solidly looks like a building, and you have these windows here, just like the real Firehouse in New York, where we have actually gone. I've actually done Randomland episodes in New York at Ghostbusters filming locations, and then we went back after they removed some scaffolding from the thing to take a look at the actual firehouse they used for the exterior in both those movies. And it's really similar. Obviously, they redesigned it for the cartoon, and then they had to redesign it again to make it squished into toy form. But they did a pretty good job of this. It actually looks like the firehouse. They got the little sign on there, which is awesome. I mean, having that little sign, that is so cool. Just these cool feet. Like I said, you got a Batman figure. Let me grab him again. If the Batman's creeping out here, like, you know, hanging down from the roof or jumping, flying up to the top, you know, how much you weigh? You're a little bit heavier than 108 or whatever. It's awesome. But then I do love that you can flip it around. It's not just like you open the top or something. You flip it around and bam, you've got the interior here. So on the roof, which let me tilt this down here. On the roof, there's this little switch, right? There it is. And I chonk that this way, just move it side to side. That is what releases the elevator here. And it does not go up. It's actually really annoying to get back up into position there. But it does go down, and it goes down in an interesting way. If you've never seen this before, I know some of you are probably very familiar with this thing. That's why we're kind of telling stories and not just, you know, doing a comprehensive toy video about this thing. This is a show and tell, so we're doing a little telling while I'm showing. So what happens on this particular elevator, which I only ever saw that one time in that kid's room that became my room, which is a weird story in and of itself, was this right here. Ready? I'm ready to throw the switch. It spins around in a circle. So he actually spins around as he goes down, and you're like, oh cool, let's slide him back up. Oh wait, he doesn't slide back up. You have to actually sit there and rotate the thing. Look, it's not even coming up on the second camera yet. It's taking forever. We can finish the whole video like this. So I would have broken this immediately, by the way, when I was a kid. I would have gotten frustrated and probably banged around on this thing. And you can tell stuff like the sign, that's not going to last long. The doors broke open all the time, probably because kids were bashing it with the car. I mean, like I was just doing, like you saw in all the toy commercials where the Ecto-1 comes, look how long this takes, screaming out of the doorway, and then you got to put the switch back, and then boom, he's back up. Oh my gosh, let's never lower that again. Probably because people bashing the car through the door, so the doors would break all the time. Let's take a look at the bottom, actually, shall we? As you can see, it is nice and roomy, and like I was saying, the car does roll in. Weirdly, the Ecto-1 cannot fit inside of here in the divots made for the wheels because it's very difficult to see, but there are actually, see this? There's these little like dents in the ground. So he rolls in and sits there perfectly halfway through the playset, so there you can kind of see it like that. He's sort of halfway through. Now the doors don't close behind it, and even if you flip it around the other way, same thing. Either the front or the back is going to peek in. So, you know, were I playing with this as a kid, I'm not that I'm going to be doing this tonight, I'd be backing in the Ecto-1, because then if you back it into position like that, check it out, you rotate it around this way, you got that cool money shot. So if you're displaying the thing, you probably want to do it like this, either doors closed, or if you want the Ecto-1 in it, kind of like that. So it never went all the way in. That was one thing people always kind of complain about, but I don't care. Like, just not a problem, right? Just push it back, close the doors, you're good to go, and everything looks cool. But it does fit in there. So the smaller ones, like there was another, what was it? I think the Ecto-2 was the helicopter, so they had a helicopter you could land on the roof. The roof is pretty sturdy, by the way. Like a cat could sit on there, the thing's not going to fall apart. I know that's a weird, probably thing to say. By the way, there's some other features of this that I haven't shown you yet that are, like, they're under the table here in a second. But So anyway, you got this nice garage area. The Bug, they had a Bug, like a Volkswagen Bug. And it came apart, that little monster one, that fit in here. So some of the other smaller vehicles would fit inside, but the Ecto one doesn't fit all the way in. Not a big problem. As you can see, plenty of space for Egon to make improvements to the car or whatever. And there's just, I don't know, I like it. There's a lot of room up there. I know the upstairs maybe doesn't have that many features. As you can see, a bunch of stickers here. But the main thing that would go downstairs, and that's why Egon's down here, he's getting ready to work on it, would be this. The Ghost Containment Unit. Let me push the firehouse. Whoa! I'm just all kinds of slippery hands. So let me push the firehouse out of the way so you can see this thing. This is the Ghost Containment Unit. Not exactly like the movie or even like the cartoon. And this on top, this is the Ghost Trap. Now you're used to ghost traps being little things that go in these guys' hands, and you can see there's a little hole there. So like if he was going to put a ghost in, that's where it would go in the movie or in the cartoon. But all these little guys, remember I said, came with a little rubber ghost inside. Here's the one that comes with the Ecto 1, which, by the way, this Ecto 1 is the re-release from Target, not sure, or from Walmart, not sure if I mentioned that. I got that in 2020. Nice pristine one. I did have an Ecto 1 that I did find at a flea market in a box. An old Ecto 1, missing doors, missing pieces, missing action features. The rope in the back is all cut off. We'll talk about the Ecto 1 another time. And so, like I said, those weird manifesting stories or whatever. I already mentioned this story twice. I got deja vu. But anyway, I did manage to get some figures later, a whole box of like Ghostbusters figures and different vehicles I did not have when I was little. So I did end up having an Ecto 1 at some point. It might have been the Part 2 one with all the stickers on it. But I did have one at some point. Anyway, all these little rubber ghosts, mostly the ones that came with the figure that are a little bit smaller. There were also some that went on your fingertips, so you'd have like fingertip ghosts, and you could go float them around. These little rubber ghosts are the perfect size to fit. Can you see that there? In these ghost traps. So you could catch it like that, you could just shove it in, pretend they got it with the proton pack or something. Or another thing you could do, because it slides like that, is you could just kind of get the drop on the ghost. Oh, we got him! And close the door. Now he's trapped inside. And then there's a really cool thing that I know everybody knew about this in the world but me, because I never watched videos about the Firehouse. I only got to play with it that one time, which was just sort of a little bit before the kids were like, that's boring, let's play, look at us, we're playing Mario 3 or whatever they were doing. No, it was earlier than Mario 3. Mario 2, whatever. There's this really cool way of getting the ghost from the trap into the containment unit. You see this bump? It goes in there. You lock that down. You slide it over like that. Cha-ching. No more ghost. Look at that. Look at that. David blamed you. Chris angeled you. No more ghosts. Where'd it go? It went into this thing. So it slid this thing. So this thing goes on this thing, and you slide the thing. It slides one open and the other one open, and then dump. And you understand what I'm saying? So that door will be opened by this one opening its door on the. I mean, that is kind of ingenious. A little bit ingenious. And now the ghost is trapped in the containment unit. Egon's got him in there with this weird, genius ghost trap system. It's a little bulkier, a little bit. Whoa, over here. A little bit larger than the version from the movie. But, interesting thing, I believe it fits right in the back of the Ecto 1. Claw's still in there, all the stuff is still in there, fits right in the back. Cha-ching! Look at that. So, the Ecto containment unit. So, this is a mighty gift. This came, I think, from Northern Ireland. I know that's where it shipped from. And this came all the way across the sea. It is a UK version, but even in the UK, by the way, there was a difference between the original release and this. The very, 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 very first wave of these things was a little bit different, only in one area that I know of, which was some of this right here was two-tone. I think there was like purplish paint on this. And so I don't know if this one's from 87 or 88 or 89, but it's certainly from those years. But even in the first year they were producing these, some of them just didn't have the purple paint on the top. I don't know if that's a European variant situation or if that is just this, it's from later years or whatever. But this is an awesome present because, like I was saying, these doors are usually busted. You see how long it took me to close those. The sign is usually missing. A lot of times the elevator is either missing or broken. Sorry, I'm stuttering like a beast tonight. I just cannot contain my excitement. I better put it in the containment unit. Get it? My saying, oh, by the way, also the car does not fit in here while that thing is down here where it goes. Actually, it goes in the basement if you're going according to the movies, and probably even in the cartoons. It's down in the I can't remember. It's down in the basement, but here, you know, there is no basement. Just like the Alamo, there is no basement in the Kenner Firehouse or in the Alamo. And so that thing sits down here. It just kind of looks better down there, right? Like the ghost containment unit. But you can always store it up on the top floor if you really wanted to. You just slide right in there to kind of keep it out of the way, which is where I'm going to put it for the moment. But this thing is pretty complete. The stickers are in nice shape. You know, overall, the whole thing's in really solid condition. Like, this is not something that you just come across in the wild normally at all. Not these days. And if you do come across one in the wild that's in anywhere near this kind of condition or has this many pieces, it's really expensive. I mean, I'm sure if it was just the outer walls and maybe the pole that holds it together, just the pieces can be $150, $200. I think sort of all together, kind of all the pieces there, but rough. You know, the stickers scratched, maybe the ecto containment unit's missing. I think $300 or $400. I know there's one in the box still that's been graded and put in acrylic and everything that someone's trying to get $10,000 for on the internet. So these things are not always cheap. And so I appreciate it even more that somebody was like, hey, would you be interested in having this thing? I don't really need it anymore. She's kind of doing the thing that I had been doing for a couple years where, like, that thing that you never got. We were talking about this actually when she was saying, like, oh, where do I ship it to and whatever. Do you ship it to the P.O. box? I'm like, oh, no. Send this one over to my brother's house. Someone, you know, I don't want this thing. It's not going to fit in the P.O. box for one thing. But we're talking about how, like, there are some toys that you just always wanted. The Ecto one was one of them. Look at that. The door just will not stay up. And look at that re-release. That is so cool. Some toys you just always wanted. The ones that got away that, like the turtle sewer lair over here, which was actually made out of 2 old broken ones because it was so expensive to get a turtle lair playset, but I never had that as a kid. That's a whole separate show and tell, a whole separate story. Actually, there's some turtle stuff I really want to show you that's super cool very soon. But I never had that as a kid. And so I just went through this whole thing later where I was like, I just want to have it. Now I have it. I have it on display in the office. And when I do the morning announcements, Patreon videos, it's always in the background there. I got modern turtles and the old turtles on there. It's a cool display piece, but if I had to give it away or sell it or get rid of it, I'd be okay now because it's like I did it. I got that childhood bucket list thing, and now I've done it. I can check it off the list. I've got it forever, right? And so she was saying, like, that's kind of what happened there. She got this thing, and I think this is one of the pieces where it's like, yeah, I'm not super attached. It's not the one from my childhood. It's one I got later because I was like, man, I always wanted that thing. I had a chance to get it, snagged it. Now I'm good. I'm going to pass it on to you. So now it's with me. We're just caretakers of this. If you're treating your stuff nice, you're just a caretaker of it. Or the next person gets to play. The goal is not to own all the toys in life. Where did I hear this? American Pickers, one of the guys on American Pickers, one of those old guys selling this stuff, he goes, hey, the goal isn't to own all the toys in life, it's to get to play with all the toys. So I'm only the temporary caretaker of this piece. I'm sure it'll live in the office for a while, and then one day, with permission, it'll get sold or get passed on to the next person if I can afford to do that at the time, but maybe it'll get passed on for free. But honestly, this one might have to be an over my dead body kind of situation because I dreamed of this forever, not just for, like, the Ghostbusters, like I was saying, but for the display potential for Batman, for Ninja Turtles, for everything else. This was like the coolest, just the most awesome, what would the kids say? Flex, as the kids would say in the 80s. If you had this, you were flexing hardcore with your cap. I don't know. I'm still back then. Hey, this is radical, as the kids say. As the kids say, cowabunga. You know what I'm saying? That's what's cool. Cowabunga, radical, dude. My dudes, surfs up, hang loose, body glove, Quicksilver, deal with it. Wearing Vans or whatever you're wearing. I'm wearing Payless shoes, but I'll get Vans one day, and I did. And they were purple. And everyone was like, why are you wearing purple Vans? And I'm like, I don't know. What am I telling this story for? Okay, we're running out of time. But this is just the coolest thing that's ever showed up for Christmas. And I was like, okay, if that thing comes in the mail, I'm going to hold on to that as long as possible. So this is going to join the ranks of stuff in that other office. But there is a lot of stuff I've got I want to let go of. And for years, I've been either meaning to put in the antique store booth, which we still have. There's a lot of cool vintage toys in there at the moment, including Ninja Turtle stuff, Star Wars stuff. But I didn't want to let it go unless I got to share it. And so I think some on this channel and also some just for the Patreon people. There will be some more future Randomland Show and Tells. This is a thing I have meant to do for years. At least with, kind of 2 cameras, just being able to sit, just chill, kind of keep unedited, off the cuff, and just tell stories and stuff about just different collectibles, different pieces. I'm sure I'll get better at keeping it succinct, or maybe not, and filming it and editing it. We'll find a better spot to do this in. But I had to start early and give you guys this, because this is the coolest. This is 34 years. My Christmas present showed up 34 years late, and I'm so stoked that this is here. There's not that many features of it, so there's not that much more to talk about, but if you just look this thing over and you just look at it like money shot with the vehicle out front and the characters, and you just see the inside. I mean, from a kid's eye perspective, like if you're 7 years old and or you're 5 years old or whatever, your little head is down here and you're doing these guys. This is a mammoth, massive playset. Now, some of them came along later. In 1991, I got the Technodrome. So I never had this, but I got the Technodrome, which I don't have now, because that's another thing. It's 400, 500, 600, 700. They go for a lot of money now, especially with all the pieces together and all the parts, complete, as they say. If this isn't complete, it's pretty darn close. Actually, I know this isn't complete, and I'll get back to that in 1 second, but I just want to quickly say, yeah, we did have the Technodrome. We did... have some other stuff here, but we didn't have a lot of playset stuff. Like, I never even ended up having the Batcave. I had a huge Batman collection. I still don't have a Batcave in the box or anything. I got a loose one, though. I found it at a Savers thrift store. Rock and roll. But this was like the ultimate thing. This was like Power Wheels or something like that. It's like rich kids had that, or My Buddy, or My Pet Monster, or something. It was like, this was not something that was in the neighborhood that I grew up in. Mostly Spanish-speaking neighborhood. Everybody there had, either the parents that were 18 when they were born, kind of thing, like me. So just people pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, or just it was a tough neighborhood for everybody. Everybody in that neighborhood was going through something, and then like I said, my mom got that job and she worked really hard my whole life. My dad worked hard my whole life, so they gave us some great Christmas presents. I have to do this for legal reasons. I gotta go see them on Christmas, right? Well, what if they see this and they don't think I'm grateful? Of course I'm grateful. And they got some rad stuff. So we got the Technodrome, we got like Bat Missile, Batmobile in 1992, all the cool stuff. And then as we got older, we started aging out of the toys. It was just different stuff. I wanted a director's chair because I always wanted to make movies and films. Ironically, I was trying to make a lot of stop motion films with action figures as a kid. Just let's look at this thing while I'm talking here, spin it around. And into puppets and computer stuff, and like trying to do graphic design and different stuff. And then of course the music and the guitars and stuff came later. So there was just different stuff on my mind. Plus Star Wars toys got re-released in 1995, and I was sort of aging out of playing with them by then, but I still wanted to have them, cool TIE Fighter, and I started collecting action figures by then. Super weird. Jurassic Park toys. So I'm thinking of the kid across the hall from us, Ryan. He was on an episode of Friends and an episode of Seinfeld, I think, too, as like kids. I don't think he had speaking parts, but he was like an extra. So he was in the Friends apartment, and I think in Seinfeld too, if I'm not mistaken. Weird. I know my friend Kevin was on Seinfeld once. Very strange. Anyway, he had like the G.I. Joe Command Center. He had the Jurassic Park Command Center, which is another epic like playset, which we will look at one day. And all this stuff, maybe on Patreon or somewhere off the side. Because I know a lot of you that watch the Normal Adventures, you see me in a theme park, you see me on road trips or doing stuff like that. You're probably thinking, what are we doing talking about toys? But every once in a while, I got to talk about toys. Plus, like I say, this will be an ongoing thing, a little show and tell action, mostly maybe over on there, but we'll mix it up. Every once in a while, you're going to see me sit down and show and tell you about something cool. Often it might be toys, it might be other stuff too. There's a lot of stuff in there, like I was saying, or trying to say. I'm very scatterbrained. It's the holidays, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to let go or pass on or put in the antique store booth for sale or something like that. I really just I don't need this thing. Either it's given to me or I collected over the years or sort of inherited from people going, I don't want this junk, you want this junk? Cool action figures. But there's also a lot of other just crazy, weird stuff that I would love to show you and tell you about. And we may even have another person on here with us. Sort of a hybrid Randomland conversation and a little Randomland show and tell. So we're getting all the Randomlands ready for 2024. And I'm very happy that I got to spend a little bit of extra holiday time with you and show you this crazy thing that just sort of fell into my lap. I really want to thank Georgia for sending this because I was like, can I even pay for the shipping? No, no way. And if you get tired of it, you can do whatever you want with it. Like, no. Because I keep telling people, like, there's no more room. I don't have room for any more stuff. So that's why she's like, yeah, would you want this? I'm not sure. I want to make sure I get your permission before I send it because I know you're saying you're just cluttered and drowning in stuff. Because it's stuff I want to film and share with you guys before I put it out there. So that's why we're actively going to have a few more of these. And anyway, I was like, I'll make room. In fact, I set up my office specifically with the space that's right behind me normally when I'm talking on the Patreon thing, for those of you who are in there, where I have left the exact size I measured before I put up the shelves in there, just in case I ever came across the shreds of one of these things for it to go in there. So I know right where it's going to go and everything. But I've got to make some room. So we're going to be showing some other stuff, getting rid of some other stuff. We're going to bring back the Randomland Conversations, and we got lights and all the sound stuff now and different stuff, which I'm experimenting with. The Sometimes vlog is going to be back. And so we're recovering from 2024, which is 10 years, or we're recovering for 2024, sorry, because 10 years, more than 10 years, we've been doing Randomland, we've been doing all kinds of crazy videos and Sometimes vlogs and Patreon things and podcasts, and it's been a lot of content and a lot of adventures and a lot of crazy stuff. I got a few. It's not quite, the 10-year anniversary is not quite over until like March or April, so I still have some surprises to show you. I think some surprises are right around the corner actually in January. But it's been a long 2023, a lot of traveling and bouncing back and forth and feeling like a human ping pong ball. And so before I disappear for my whole holiday break, and I'll be right back with you in the new year, sometime the first week of the new year. I just wanted to have a little time with you, have a little moment, a little show and tell, something a little different than the usual, like, here's the theme park at Christmas again. Remember those decorations from last year or whatever? Although it was cool doing the Disney World thing and seeing all that stuff there. I just wanted to do something a little different, a little out of the ordinary, and just a little more mano-y-mano. Just you and me, just hanging out, having a little chatteroo, showing one of the coolest things ever from the 80s that just sort of fell into my lap. And I'm sorry, Ghostbusters fans, if I missed a little detail or something like that when it comes to this playset, or if I didn't show you the perfect angles. I'm so excited just to have it and just to show it. So this is just 10 I never really grew up, but this is 10-year-old me going, look what I can. We got to play with this thing all day. This is just the modern version of me playing with it, is to show it to all of you guys. That is so freaking rad. So I'm going to load this up. I'm going to get Egon in here. I do have the 4 original Ghostbusters somewhere. I found them somewhere, and I was like, ooh, I got to hold on to those in case I ever get the Firehouse. But these are some that have just randomly popped up at flea markets and different stuff. But yeah, there you go. And I was only holding on to this because I was thinking, oh, if I ever get the Firehouse, it'd be cool to show, how they've reissued stuff. Weirdly, actually, the last thing I'll say about the Ghostbusters toys from Kenner and how they're hard to find. I got to cover the turtles there. Turtles for the future. Next time I come back, I'll tell you about some turtle stuff. Well, next time I come back and do this. They reissued the Ecto-1 right here. They reissued this bad boy, and it's like perfect, because I have an old one. I'm sitting them side by side, the vintage. They obviously have the original steel molds for a lot of this stuff, unlike Hasbro with the vintage Star Wars stuff, where they obviously molded it off an old. Anyway, and it's cool. They reissued some of the figures. Now they're going to be reissuing the Fright Features figures. I don't know if you guys remember these, wacky action. You squeeze their arm, their eyes pop out, or their heads pop up, or their ears pop out, or anything like that. I think I actually have Janine right here. She raised her arm. She's like, oh no! And her eyes pop out and they bug out of her head, and she's all crazy looking and stuff. So I think they're even going to start doing some of these. They've done some of the villains. I might finally get that Slimer that I never had as a kid. But they never have reissued the Firehouse. And I just keep thinking, dude, you want to get all the people 40 and up, 40 to 45, 50, to be like, shut up and take my money? You got to put the Firehouse back out. Because anyone, I don't own this place, but anyone living with enough space, they'll make some room. Get rid of these books. We don't need books anymore. We got the Firehouse. Keep it. I got a pit bull. Back to also 1989, Back to the Future Part 2. We never got rad toys for that, though. They had to make them for us 30 years later. Got to take a time machine from back when to get to the future, to get the toy to go back in time. But Back to the Future is a whole other conversation. My Christmas present showed up 34 years late. But it's a Merry Christmas anyways. And it's even merrier because I have all of you around. And sorry for switching up the format and screwing up the algorithm. 90% of you probably won't even see this in your feed. But I just thought it would be kind of cool to hang out, do a little bit of something different, shake things up, check out some Ghostbuster stuff. But now we've done it. We've seen it all. So I'll see you guys over on the morning announcements, the Patreon thing. I'll see you here for Randomland. I'll see you for the Sometimes vlog. And you'll probably see me before I see you, unless I see you first when we do more videos. But for now, we've done our duty. By the way, we're having a crazy merch sale too. But kind of trying to remember all the things. Yeah, we're slashing. We're slashing all the prices on all the old stuff. Clearance sale over at Randomland, store.randomland.com. Everything's at randomland.com. You've done your duty. You can go home and fire pole well.